In this video, we're going to be discussing radicals and rational exponents. So a radical is a way of writing the nth root of a number. So this right here is a radical, okay, and you're probably used to seeing these with square roots, okay, but it doesn't have to be a square root. It could be a cube root or a fourth root or a fifth root, okay. The roots go up as powers go up, and a radical is just taking the root of a number. And the two parts of a radical, besides the actual radical symbol, are this number on the outside, which is known as the index. So that's the root you're taking. So in a square root, the index is 2. In a cube root, the index is 3, and so on. And the number under the radical, which is known as the radicand. All right, so these are just some vocabulary words you need to know about radicals. If there is no index, then it's just assumed to be a square root. So if you got something like this, where you've got your radical and this is like 4 underneath, then if there's no index, then you just assume that the index is 2, and then the square root of 4 just ends up being 2. Okay, so if you don't see an index, then you're talking about a second root or a square root. And then there's another way of writing a radical, and that other way is with a rational exponent. So a rational exponent is just an exponent that is a fraction. And you can kind of see how a radical is related to a rational exponent right here. So a radical with an index of n is the same thing as a number to the 1 over n power. Okay, we're going to be talking about how to convert between radicals and rational exponents in this video. So how do we convert between them? Well, the exponent under the radical becomes the numerator of the rational exponent, and the index of the radical becomes the denominator of the rational exponent. So if I have x to the nth root of x to the m power is the same thing as x to the m over n power. All right, so we're going to look at some examples on how this can work. So if I take a look, all right, so number 1 here, we've got, it says, write each of the following radicals as a rational exponent. So I've got the cube root of x to the 4th power. So when I go to do this, okay, I'm going to make it x to the something power, and 4 is going to become the numerator of my fraction, and 3 is going to become the denominator. So it just looks like this, x to the 4 over 3 power. The exponent on the inside goes on top, the index goes on the bottom. A to the 8th power, well, one thing with this one, we don't have an index. If you remember from a couple slides back, if we don't have an index, it's assumed to be 2. Okay, so if you don't see one there at all, it's assumed to be 2. So this becomes x, this should be an a, not an x, but a to the 8 over 2 power, which is 8 divided by 2 is 4. So this should be an a, not an x, but whatever. Okay, this would be a to the 4th power. In example C here, I've got the 9th root of b, and b doesn't have an exponent on it. And in case you don't remember, if there isn't an exponent, then the exponent that's not written is 1. So the 9th root of b is the same thing as, once again, this is x, but it should be a b, okay, is going to be b to the 1 over 9 power. Okay, so to turn a radical into a rational exponent, you simply take the power inside the radical divided by the index. All right, for example 2, now we're going to go the other way. We're going to rewrite each one of these rational exponents as a radical. So here I've got m to the 7/5 power. Okay, so we know that when I go to write this as a radical, 7 is going to be the power inside the exponent inside the radical, and 5 is going to be the index. Okay, so 7 becomes my exponent inside the radical, and 5 becomes the index. Over here, I've got k to the 1/3. So 1 is the power inside the radical, 3 is the index. So this just becomes the cube root of k. When the exponent is 1, you don't have to write it. And for c, I've got y to the 9 over 2 power. All right, so 9 is going to become our radical, our exponent under the radical, and 2 is our index. And as we've said before, when the index is 2, you don't have to write it. That's just the square root. So that's how we would convert between a rational exponent and a radical. So I'm going to leave you with a try-it problem. Your try-it problem is to write this one, the 4th root of x to the 5th power, as a rational exponent, and this one, x to the 7/2 power, as a radical.